This is the Cliff Yates Show. Personal growth, motivation, inspiration, and philosophies for a great life.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Cliff Yates Show. As always, you're in the right place. And in this episode, I want to talk about my adventures as a card counter in Las Vegas. I learned to be a card counter while in jail. And when I say in jail, I mean working the jail as an LA County deputy sheriff. My first assignment was in the jail. And so I had gotten to a point in my career where I had gone through the lengthy process of applying from the state of New York to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, going through the long background process, and then going to the academy, 18 weeks of very arduous training. It's a pretty tough academy to go through. And then graduating, going to jail operations school because your first assignment is inside the jail. Being on training as a jail trainee, a jail deputy, you join I joined the LA Sheriff's Department to be in patrol. But you can't go to patrol until you've finished your jail assignment. So after a few months at the main men's central jail, I got sent to a minimum security jail. And after I was in the jail for about a year and a half, then it became very boring. I was getting a little disgruntled. I was not growing anymore in my career or learning anything. And so I was working the night shift. And on my days off, I would sometimes maintain my night shift hours. And one night I was up late at night and I saw a late night infomercial. And it was from Bobby Singer. And he was selling the Bobby Singer method. He was a professional card counter, Atlantic City, New Jersey, and he had a program. I bought the program. I thought, this is fascinating. I had been to Vegas now 2 to 3 times, played a little craps, some blackjack. I didn't really know what I was doing, but Vegas sure was exciting and fun for me because I was a night owl. No clocks in Las Vegas. Everything's open 24/7. And so I thought, card counting, Las Vegas, make money, having fun, playing games. That's for me. And so I got the program, and I was thinking about it today as I was going through some self-improvement training, retraining from Tony Robbins, where he was talking about 3 pillars of success. And I thought, wow, I actually, before I even knew there was such a thing as personal growth, self-improvement, motivation, inspiration, before I had even attended a Tony Robbins seminar, I had been applying these success principles in my card counting, which is why I was pretty successful for the small amount of time that I was a card counter, which was about 18 months. So I got the program and I went above and beyond in my immersion into the world of card counting. Now, a lot of people think, well, you need to have a photographic memory to be a card counter. Well, and my mom and my wife say I have a photographic memory, but I don't. And you don't need to have one to be a successful card counter. So I got the program, and I also got probably 5, 6, 7, 8 books I devoured on card counting. There are several different systems that you can use in card counting. But the basic systems that are out there, you're keeping track of groups of cards. You're not counting every card. So, and if you're going to be a successful card counter in the system that I had, you had 3 components that you really had to be professional at. You had to have these 3 down pat for you to be successful. You had to know the basic strategy reflexive. You had to know card counting, and you had to know your money management system. And in that regard, you could have a slight advantage over the casinos over the long run. It's like 1 or 2%. And when there's going to be highs and lows, there's going to be fluctuations, which is why you have to be going and playing regularly to have any type of success financially with card counting. It has to be over the long run, and you have to be going quite frequently. And so I enjoyed my card counting. I got into it, and I was really good at it. But after a while, it became like a job. It was no longer just playing. Yeah, it was a little bit arduous, in because I mean, when I say I immersed myself in card counting, I got my own card table, my own blackjack table at my house, and I would now when they talk about the basic strategy in card counting, they have figured out by high-speed computer what is the best decision to make based on your two cards against what the dealer has. So based on a neutral count of the deck or multi-deck shoe, there is a decision that's the best decision to make. Now, not all your decisions are going to be winning decisions, but they are the best based on statistics, based on the odds. Why can you be a successful card counter in Las Vegas, Atlantic City, or anywhere? Because it's the only game where what's been played, you know, it's the only game where what's been played, you know what's left to be played. If all the tens and aces have gone out of the deck or out of the shoe, then guess what? You can't get a 21. If you can't get a 21, you're not going to get paid 3-2. You're not going to have opportunities to take advantage when you have the advantage. The advantage you have over the house is they must hit to a soft 17. You can stand, hit, split pairs, double down. You can double down after split. You can do all these things. You can surrender. You can do all these things that the dealer can't do. So when you have the opportunities to raise your bet and make money, you have to take advantage of those times. Now let's talk about counting the cards. And I was saying before that you keep track of groups of cards. Each group is giving a value. So 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are given a +1 value. 7, 8, 9s are neutral, 0. 10s and face cards and aces are given a -1. So now you keep a running count. Now I played a face-up game, so one card is face-up. Then they give you the second card face-up, and then there's one card down for the dealer and one face-up. And so now once you get those two cards, you practice doing a running count as the cards come up in pairs, because you're playing a face-up game. All the cards are face-up, and so now you can count the cards right away. Now, another thing you do is you sit at what they call first or third base. So at the table, there's the positions have numbers in your system. First base is on one end, second base is in the center, third base is on the other end. You want to be at first or third. You don't want to be in the middle if you have other players on the table, because then your head's going back and forth. And what does that tell the dealer and or pit boss? That you're counting the cards. Now, counting cards is not illegal. It's not against the rules per se. But if they think you're counting cards, they will either ask you to leave or they'll take measures to take away your advantage. They can shuffle. If it's a single deck, they can shuffle after every hand. If it's a shoe, they can burn a bunch of cards off the top. And when I say burn a bunch of cards, each casino will, let's say I played a multi-deck shoe. So when they start a shoe of 4 to 6 decks, they'll usually take 4 to 5 cards right off the top and put it in the discard tray. So you don't know what they are. In their mind, they're taking away your advantage. So if it's 3 to 4 cards, that's okay. That is something we can live with as card counters. Now, if we're at first or third base, now we don't have to move our heads. We just look at the cards. 2 cards are dealt up. We've already counted the cards. So when you keep a running count of cards, it's like this. So you see, let's say there's 3 of us at the table. There's 2 kings. You just have to glance. You know that's -2, right? And now I have a 2 and a 3. Now those are +1s. Now I'm back to 0. 7, 8, 9 over here. I'm still at 0. See, the count is 0. Now the 10s and aces are given a -1 value. So if the deck, or in my case, the multi-deck shoe, the count gets plus. That means the deck or the shoe is rich in tens and aces. That's when we're going to have betting opportunities, which means we can double down, we can split pairs, we can double down after we split pairs. And so we get opportunities to get more blackjacks and to get paid more money. And we have to take advantage of those times when the decks are rich in tens and aces, because that's when we're going to get our aces together, split pairs, 21s, and we're going to get paid 3-2 on our 21s. Let's talk about, so that's how the count goes. Now, how do you practice the count? You do this. You take a regular deck of cards, and every deck has to count to 0. So what you do is you take a deck of cards, and you take a card out, and you don't see it. Now you turn the cards over, and you start fanning through the deck 2 cards at a time, and you keep a running count. 2 kings minus 2, 2 and a 3, now we're at 0. 7, 8, still at 0. An 8 and 9, we're still at 0. 3 and a 4, we're at plus 2. 2 and a 3, we're at plus 4. Okay, and then we keep counting those 2 cards at a time until we get to the end. And then if we're at plus 1, now we know that deck has to count back to 0. We know the card we pulled out has to be a 10 or ace, which is a -1 card. That'll bring the deck back to 0. And that's how we know we were correct in our counting that deck. So we just keep doing that over and over. We take a card out, fan through the cards. Oh, we're at 0. That card we pulled out has to be a 7, 8, or 9 if we're correct. So you can always check yourself. And then you start getting very fast at that. So you keep doing that over and over again until you get your speed up so that you can go through a deck in less than 30 seconds and have a proper, and know what that card is and what group it belongs to. And you're right every time. And so you keep doing that over and over again. And then you start doing that on your table. You know, you start doing that over and over again as you go through the cards. And now you're playing the basic strategy. Now, what is the basic strategy? As I said, it's been the decision that's been figured out by a high-speed computer. What's the best decision to make? In other words, if I have an A7, now that means if the count is neutral. So if the count varies to any degree, way plus or way minus, then there's a formula for changing our basic strategy so that we take advantage of how the makeup of the deck is. So let's just go by a neutral deck or decks. So if we have an A7, we double if the dealer has a 3, 4, 5, or 6. And we stand if the dealer has a 2, 7, 8. Otherwise, we hit. Now, see, and the way you learn this basic strategy is you have flashcards, and you go through those flashcards over and over again so that you know the basic strategy reflexive. You don't have to think about it. When you're at the table and you're counting cards, you know, by just glancing at them, you have the count now plus 4. You don't have to split, stand, double. You don't have to think about it. You know A7, double 3 through 6, stand 2, 7, 8, otherwise hit. A6, double 3 through 6, otherwise hit. You know if you got a pair of 9, split 2 through 9, except 7, stand 7, 10, ace. You know if you have a pair of 7s, you split 2 through 7. These are the kind of decisions that are already made for you. So now you just have to count the cards and keep track of your money management system, which is very important as a single player, because what are the pit bosses and the dealers looking for when they think somebody might be counting cards? They're looking people that are really concentrated on the cards. They're good players. They know if you're a good player or not, you're making proper decisions. They are looking for you to have a small bet off the top of the shoe or the top of the deck. That means when they first start dealing. And a large bet near the end, maybe when the shoe or the deck is rich in tens and aces, and you start raising your bet. If it's a more than a 10-1 spread, then that sends off bells to the pit boss and the dealers that you might be counting cards, right? You're betting $2, $2, $2, and now you're betting 50. It's different. If you're betting $2, and a 20, Not going to ring any bells. 222-100. They're going to look at you, and they're going to see what you're doing. So nothing illegal about it, but they're nothing illegal, but they may ask you to leave the casino. I've never had that happen to me, but that's how you can take advantage of the rules of the casino. Now, you have to know the rules of the casino because every casino has different rules. So now, to get the best advantage and make the most money, you want to play at the casinos that have the most liberal rules. That means they don't burn too many cards off the top. So when they start a shoe, they don't go boom, 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 and burn 10 cards. Too many. It's not going to give us an accurate makeup of the decks. Maybe they don't allow double down after split up to 4 times. So most casinos, you can split pairs 4 times. You get a pair of aces, you can split them. You get another ace, you can split them. You get another one, you can split that. Now you've split those aces 4 times. And now 10, 10, 10. You just got 4 blackjacks on one hand. That's how you take advantage of betting opportunities when the deck or decks are rich in 10s and aces. And so you want to be playing at those casinos with the most liberal rules that allow you to take advantage. So that's how you become proficient at being a card counter. For me, it was Las Vegas, could be Atlantic City, but you have to know that basic strategy reflexive so that you don't have to make any decisions. You know, A7, double 3 through 6, stand 2, 7, 8, otherwise hit. You don't have to think about that. You already know. You got an A7, you see the dealer throw up a 4, you know you're doubling. So it's already a made up decision that you made. You're gonna vary that if the count gets way high or way low. So I did very, very well, to the point I was doing well enough that people were investing in my bankroll. Now, depending on how much your bankroll is. Now, I had a logbook, so you would take your main bankroll, and when you went to Vegas, you would split that up into different sessions. So you would have a session, and you would play. I would play. Now, you can get very fatigued because you're counting basic strategy. I would limit my sessions to about no more than an hour. And then I would leave the table. And then I would go in the bathroom or somewhere in the back of the casino, somewhere where I could be alone and I could write in my logbook and take notes. Okay, the casino, maybe who the dealer was, what time I started, what I bought in with, and the end session time, and what I cashed in with. If I bought in with 100, played for an hour, cashed 120, net win $20. Then I would rest a bit. Maybe I'd get something to eat, little ice cream or something. And then I would, once I felt ready, sit down, I would do another session. Then I would keep track of that. And, depending on how long I was in Vegas, if I was just in there for the day, and actually I got good enough so that I was actually flying in from Los Angeles, playing for about 7-8 hours. Then I would fly home at night. And I was doing well enough to pay for my airfare and still make a profit. So I was doing well enough that people were investing in my bankroll. And I needed that because based on my money management system, I needed more money in my bankroll so that I could play at a higher minimum table. As a card counter, you want what most players don't want. You want to be alone with the dealer. If you're alone with the dealer, you're going to get more hands per hour, number one. Number two, when the deck or decks are rich in 10s and aces, you're going to be the one taking advantage of those betting opportunities. You're going to be getting those blackjacks or the dealer, but the good cards aren't going to be eaten up by numerous players at the table. So when you're at a higher minimum, less people are going to be at your table. When you're at the lowest minimum, you might see a dealer there by themselves, and they call it opening up a table. That means you sit down, you're alone with the dealer, that's what you want. As soon as you sit down, then all of a sudden 2, 3, 4 other people start sitting down with you. Because no one, unless they're a card counter, they don't want to, what they say, open up a table. They feel intimidated about being alone with a dealer, which is exactly what you want. You want to be alone with the dealer. So you want to get to the higher minimum so that you can be alone with the dealer. Or you have to play at odd times. You might have to set your alarm, get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, then go down to the casino, and then you start your sessions. And so the life of a card counter. And you start to get to know the pit bosses. You start to get to know the dealers. And when I was playing, actually the dealers, at the time, not every casino had those reward cards, or you weren't registered at the casino. But all pit bosses, they were required to give so many comps away. Complimentary things like rooms, dinner, coffee shop, whatever, depending on how much money you had in play for a certain amount of time. So as a card counter, you learn to ask the pit boss for comps. So even today, the pit bosses come around, and usually they take your card and they take note of how much you bought in with, and they take note of how much you've had in play for a certain period of time, and you get rewards for that. Now, today it's figured out by computer, and then you get notified, or they might not even tell you at the table. But back, these are in the 80s, I would get done playing and I would ask the pit boss, hey, how about a comp? And they knew what I bought in with. They knew how long I was playing and how much money I had in play. And the more you have in play, the more likely they are to give you a good comp. And all I was really looking for was dinner. And a lot of times they would just give me, they would give me lunch or dinner at the coffee shop and not at one of the high restaurants. Or sometimes they would, depending on how much money I was putting in play and for how long at the casino. Now, that's me playing by myself. Now, there are other methods for playing. There are other methods for playing at a high minimum. There's what they call back counting a table. In that way, what I do is I stand behind people that are playing at a table. Let's say it's a $100 minimum, but my bankroll really doesn't apply. I don't have the bankroll large enough to be playing at $100 a hand, but I can hang back off the table and watch as people are playing and the dealer's dealing hands. Now, I'm counting cards as I'm back there. If I see that shoe all of a sudden is sky high betting opportunity, now I can all of a sudden throw 100 down there. Money plays, I tell the dealer, and now I play that $100. And maybe I buy in with 200. They give me 2 black chips, and now I play 2 hands. Now I'm playing, instead of playing $10 a hand till the shoe gets hot, and then playing 100. Now I'm actually just playing the minimum. So, and then that disguises your card counting. No one's paying attention. All they see is, you start betting in the middle of a shoe. You're not counting cards. You're not varying your bet from low to high. You're coming in and you're just making a flat bet of $100. And so, but you're jumping in at a time when you're going to have betting opportunities based on the makeup of that deck and or shoe. Now, when you're counting the cards, so when a deck or decks are plus, it depends on where you are in the discard tray or in the deck or the decks. In other words, if I'm +5 early and there's a lot left in the shoe, that's not the same as +5 middle or +5 late in the shoe. If I'm getting late in the shoe and I'm at a +10, see, then I know all those 10s and aces have to come out of that shoe because all decks count back to 0. Now, I forgot to mention, when you're looking for liberal rules, you're not only looking for how many cards they burn off the top of the deck or the shoe, you're also seeing how deep they go with the shuffle card. That card they put in the deck or decks that tells them when they get to there, then they stop play and they shuffle. If they go way deep and there's only maybe a deck or a deck and a half left in that shoe, then that's a casino you want to play and count the cards at. If they're only going half the shoe, you don't want to play there because you're not going to get the full advantage if those decks are rich in tens and aces. They're already going to shuffle up before you get to maybe a good part of the shoe, especially if the count is not high early or middle. So these are all the things you pay attention to. There's another method that you've probably seen. There's those card counting movies where, the MIT students would come into Vegas. Now, they actually did have teams for many years who would assault Vegas and would do very well. Now, how teams would work in card counting, and they call it the big player method. So you'd have, let's say a casino has 8 to 10 tables of blackjack. So you have 5 or 6 players that are now at each of the tables, and they're counting the cards. Now, when their deck or decks or their shoe gets high in the count, they actually signal a player that's standing off. He's going to go to that table, sit in, and he's going to start making a high bet. Now listen, that big player, see, he can drink, he can be loud, he can be he can be obnoxious. And what that tells the pit boss and the dealer is this. Oh, here comes a guy. He's sitting down in the middle of the shoe. He's drinking. He's not paying attention to the cards. He is not card counting. They pay no attention. But really, you may be getting a betting spread of $5 to $100, $200. But they don't know that. See, the counter, he's paying or she is paying attention and counting the cards. They can even signal the double down, the split, or the stand signal so that the big player, he can act like a drunk, and he can be outlandish, and he can kind of act, kind of crazy, and it puts everybody off. The pit boss comes over. Oh, guy's drinking, not looking at the cards, came in the middle of a shoe, pays no attention. Meanwhile, you're getting a big betting spread because you're in a team. Now the count goes bad. You get the signal as the player. You get the signal from your counter. Hey, the count's gone bad. End of session. You leave the table. Another table gets hot. Now you sit down at that table. Do the whole thing all over again. And then you go down the strip, go casino to casino using the big player method. And these teams would make big money that way because they're getting a big spread, maybe $5 to $100, $200. And they're taking advantage of all the casinos and their liberal rules, and they're taking advantage of being able to get that big spread of more than 10 to 1, where that would ring bells off. So the big player method with a team works very well. I never had a team. I just played by myself, but that would be something you could do. And there's a couple movies they made based on people using teams. There was one with MIT students, but you don't have to be a mathematician to be a good card counter. You just have to be good at keeping track of those groups of cards, get that money management system down. You know your basic strategy reflexive, right? And you can card count without getting exhausted or making mistakes. You take your breaks and you keep track of how you're doing. I had a dentist, he was so confident in my skill, he invested $10,000 in my bankroll, which made me immediately have anxiety because I just was not used to betting with that type of bankroll. So I did that for a little while, but I didn't continue that very long. And he never lost money. I always guaranteed everybody that I would give them their investment back 100%. I just needed their money to give myself a bankroll, and then I gave them a percentage of my winnings based on I based it on the percentage of the money they gave as it was to my total bankroll. So if it turned out to be they were 3%, what they gave me was 3% of my bankroll, then, if I made $100, they got 3%. They got $3 back plus their initial investment. So that's how I did it. And it was a lot of fun, I got to say. But as I said before, it got to be work, man. You really, I was never drinking while I was card counting. And I did this this was 1984. 5. And that was a long time ago. Vegas was a little bit different, and they didn't have the automatic shufflers then. These dealers, even if there was a 5-deck shoe, the dealers were doing all the shuffling. They didn't have a shuffle machine. And so it was a lot of fun. Made some money, but then it was getting time for me to go to patrol, and that's why I gave up, quit the card counting. Number 1, it was getting to be work. Number 2, time came to go to patrol. Then there was no time to be practicing and or flying to Vegas to play the game of chance, blackjack. Card counting. Check it out. But you know what? I employed 3 pillars of success. I got clarity on what I wanted. When you get clarity on what you see, your brain, this is what's amazing. And you learn this when you're studying success. Your brain does things to be very efficient. Your brain is a deleting, distorting, and a generalizing machine. And it does that so it doesn't waste time and energy. It can't pay attention to everything that's going on. If it paid attention to everything that was coming, that it could, what's your blood pressure, how the blood going through your earlobes, your rate of breathing. No. Your brain is always deleting, it's always distorting, and it's always generalizing. And so you got to be conscious of that. Now, when you tell your brain, this is important to me, when you implant that into your brain, you activate what they call RAS, your reticular activation system. RAS. Your brain says, okay, this is important. I'm going to pay attention to it. That's why when you're looking to buy an F-150 Ford pickup and you're looking through brochures and you want to buy this vehicle and you go down and you put down a big sum of money and you buy that vehicle, that's why all of a sudden on the road you see 5,000 F-150s all of a sudden. There's an F-150. There's a Ford F-150. There's another one. I see them everywhere. Why? Because you've told your brain the F-150 Ford pickup truck is important to you, so your brain says, okay, I need to pay attention to that. If it's not important, your brain says, okay, I don't have to waste my energy now on that. It's like if you live somewhere and there's a train that goes right past your window. At first, it startles you. It bothers you. After a while, you don't even hear it anymore because you've told your brain, that's not important. That's not a danger. You can put that sound out of your mind and you don't have to pay attention to it. So, anyways, that's what I did. I got clear on what I wanted to be a proficient professional card counter. What do I have to do that? I made sure I was going in the right path, which was learning reflexively card counting, money management, basic strategy. You have to make sure that you are on the right path. Then you have to take massive action. I took massive action in card counting. I got my own table. I got decks of cards. I would do 5 hands in a row, counting the cards, doing the basic strategy, and I was doing the dealer's hand too. I was able to do 5 hands, the dealer's hand, count the cards, and do basic strategy and not make any mistakes. So that I went and played Vegas with all the distractions of noise, ding, 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 of all the machines. I could put that out of my mind, and I had no trouble doing the basic strategy, counting the cards, and make sure that I was making the proper money bets when it called for me to raise my bet and when it called for me to lower my bet. I had taken massive action, and I was going in the right direction. You have to always check in with yourself. I know what I want. I know what I have to do to get there, and I check in with myself to make sure that I'm on the right path, going in the right direction. If your goal was to travel to watch a sunset and you started taking massive action heading east, you have to find out as soon as possible you're going in the wrong direction. No matter how dedicated you are, no matter how much massive action you take, You're not going to see a sunset until you get it into your head, I'm going in the wrong direction. Now, you can't immediately get to the sunset, but you know what you can do immediately? Turn around and get in the right direction. Those are success pillars that you can apply in anything you do. I applied them without even knowing them in card counting. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this episode, everybody. Listen, if you haven't already and you're listening and or watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, please. And if you're listening on one of the podcast platforms, subscribe to the show. It tells the computer that people are interacting with the show, and they're going to show it to more people who might benefit from these principles, ideas, and philosophies that can help us lead a more fulfilling and a great life. I'm glad you're here. You're in the right place. Cliff Yates. Thanks, everybody.